Hello, welcome to Workplace Wake Up. I'm Jen Shaw. Every week, I spend about 15 minutes covering legal developments, introducing you to interesting guests, and providing some entertainment to start your workday. We've had so much fun this month talking about workplace trends, how to implement effective retention strategies, how to have a really dynamite effective performance management process. We're going to wrap up this sort of touchy-feely month, if you will, by talking about soft skills. And soft skills mean different things to different people. John, the person who helps us with this podcast, said, "Oh, you mean like software?" Yeah, that's a soft skill, John. You're right. But what I mean by soft skills are not the skills you need to know to technically get your job done. Like, can you write in code? Do you know how to operate the camera? Do you understand how to program some feature that you have on your computer? The soft skills are how you show up in the workplace. And we did a podcast a couple months back on kindness, and we talked about just the value of doing the right thing at work and being a good person and being a kind person. And kindness is certainly part of a soft skill, but soft skills are more than that, right? Soft skills are really how you build relationships in your organization. And it's some basic stuff, right? You got to tell the truth. You got to have integrity. You can't take credit for somebody else's work. When somebody asks you if you know the answer to something and you don't know, you say, "I don't know, but I will find out," right? A lot of people think of soft skills as power skills, and I do too, because here's the way to think of it. We might have 10 people in an organization who are technically proficient, right? They can do the technical tasks that their job requires them to do really well. So they know how to dot their I's and cross their T's. But if one of them has better soft skills, they communicate more effectively. They're good listeners. They're not overly emotional. They think before they speak. They understand when they've overwhelmed their team. They're not squirrel, right? But they're actually thinking through each initiative in a careful way. That person is going to succeed more than those other individuals. Even though they've all got great technical skills, the soft skills are the differentiators, right? The soft skills are the things that make someone a true leader. The ability to build that relationship, to have that trust and that camaraderie. That's why when we were talking about remote work earlier this month, I was really focused on how we get our teams together when they're not physically together, right? You know, I realize we can see each other on Zoom or on Teams, but that doesn't really mean we're together, right? You don't feel that actual physical connection. At least I don't. So when we talk about soft skills and building relationships, you can do that in a remote environment, obviously. You just need to work a little harder at it, right? And as a leader right now in 2023, with everything that's going on, one of your most important soft skills has to be about managing change and uncertainty. How am I going to handle situations when the economy's changing? We've still got supply chain issues. I don't know how hard it's going to be for me to recruit someone for this opening that I have. We've got to be able to bob and weave. We've got to be able to take a longer view in the organization and be able to identify, well, what do we really need here? What is really going to be important for our success in the long term? And as a leader, it is so tempting to keep doing those technical tasks. That's what got us in many times into our leadership role, because we proved we were good at the technical tasks, right? And then maybe we had a few soft skills that raised us above everyone else a bit, but we succeeded because of those technical skills. Now, as a leader supervising a team, managing a group, now we're supposed to be doing something different. Now we're not responsible for individual tasks. We're responsible for initiatives, for objectives, for goals, for a more sort of 30,000 foot view of what's going on. And so you've got to be able to react when something changes, right? We have a great lawyer who I really have enjoyed working with, J.R. Riddell. Some of you have probably worked with him. And he told me last month that he's leaving to go to another firm. Now, it's a firm we love. They do litigation, and JR has always done litigation, and he wants to go back and do some litigation. And I was disappointed because I really like working with him, and he's done a good job, and it's a loss for the firm. But I said to him, you know, I'm proud of you. I'm happy for you. And I felt those emotions, like that was actually honest. Like I felt proud of him and I felt happy for him because I knew it was something important for him. Was I disappointed for us? Yeah. Now I have to hire someone else. Now I've got to find someone else to do the work that he was doing. Now I have to explain to clients who have worked with him, who like him, and that's been everybody, why he's not available to do their next project. So I'd rather not go through that, but I get it. So my task is figuring out how to ease the transition. That's the soft skill that I have to have. I have to be able to bob and weave in the middle of this change. And I'm not perfect at it. It takes work and it takes things. You know, I have a business coach who I talk to and I ask, well, how could I do this better? And what should I say? And what should I do? And what kinds of things should I focus on? You have to invest in yourself when you are a leader, right? The soft skills of your team are critical, but your soft skills are just as critical. So when we talk about sort of the secret sauce of being an effective leader, very often it comes down to the soft skills, that active listening, that ability to be gracious. The other day, my sister, I have a younger sister, she's great, but we see the world almost completely differently. And I shouldn't even say but, it's more of an and. She's great, and we see the world completely differently. And, we had a little moment about something, and I wrote to her in a text message, and I said, you know what, I think what we just need is to give each other a little grace. We just need to be able to say, we don't agree, and that's okay. And not take everything quite so personally and not react quite so emotionally. It's not easy to do. And by the way, I was the one who overreacted. So it was, I was basically saying about myself, I need to show some more grace. But grace is such a great term when you're talking about soft skills. Sometimes you don't say what's on your mind. My daughter Ella and I were talking the other day. She's almost 13. And she said, Mama, do you always say what's on your mind? And I had to think about it for a second. And I said, no. And it's a good thing I don't. Because sometimes what's on my mind is not appropriate for sharing. Sometimes what's on my mind is not something that I should be telling anyone else about. And she asked me, is that lying? And I said, no, it's not lying. It's knowing when to be discreet, right? It's knowing when it's better to say nothing. And she's heard me say forever, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say anything at all. But this goes further, right? This is more about once something comes out of your mouth, you can't take it back. And I know there's that old adage, sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me. Baloney. In my opinion, words can be devastating. So it does matter what we say. So taking that moment to really think through, what are we about to say? Does it make sense? How's it going to land? Those are soft skills. And the problem is when we get incredibly busy, when we're torn in 14 different directions, when we're not sure which way is up and which way is down, finding that moment, finding that space to be able to say, what is the right thing to do here? That can be hard. That could be challenging. And the more you train your team to do it, the easier it will be for you to do it. Because they'll be taking a breath too. They're not going to come to you in an uproar necessarily the way they might. If they've thought about, okay, wait a minute, my reaction to this is important. I'm going to think this through first, and I'm going to figure out what's the best way to respond and what's the best way to react and what makes sense for me to do right now. It's going to make your job easier too. So I love the idea of actually telling people what soft skills you think are important in your organization. Some are universal, telling the truth, being kind, but maybe there are other things in your organization. Maybe it's something as simple as when you're on a Zoom call, everybody has their camera on. I want to see you. I don't want to see some people and not others. I want everybody to have their camera on. I want us to be able to communicate. Maybe we take a minute at the beginning of every meeting and say, how everybody's feeling, or one fun thing they're going to do this weekend. I know some of this might sound really sort of, gosh, Jen, we're busy. We don't have time for this preschool nonsense. But you're dealing with people. You're not dealing with robots. And people have emotions and feelings and desires and needs. And in a workplace, you have to think about those just the way you would think about them at home with your family. So it's worth the energy. It's worth the time. It's worth the resources to really think about what are those soft skills that we value in our organization. And how are you going to teach people? Well, first, you're going to tell them what you want. Second, you're going to give them resources. Maybe they need a coach. Maybe there's a class. Maybe there's a book you'd like them to read. Whatever it might be. And then third, you're going to hold them accountable. So you're going to tell them, you're going to teach them, and then you're going to hold their feet to the fire. If you don't value soft skills, no one on your team will value them either. So once again, fish rots from the head down, right? You have to think about how what you're doing, what you're saying, how you're behaving is impacting everyone else in the organization. And once you do that, once you really understand how your conduct and how your presence affects other people, then you can find a way to do it better. I know I'm a ball of energy. I have a loud voice. I've got a lot going on. Sometimes that's hard for people. So I try sometimes to come in a little early, shut my door, and do a few things before everybody gets here. So I feel like my sort of energy level is down a little bit, and I'm not, the first person who comes in the door isn't going to get, okay, here's 47 things we need to do today, right? So just thinking about how we show up in the workplace, that is what we're talking about. How we show up, who we are. And take a look in the mirror once in a while and ask yourself, how could I do better? How could I show up better? What skills do I need to work on? And how am I going to help my team get to where they need to be? If you focus on these things, if you actually take just a little sliver of time to appreciate the value of these soft skills, everything else we've talked about this month, employee retention, employee engagement, is going to fall right into place. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. We love having you with us on the podcast. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for sending ideas. Thank you for being such enthusiastic participants. We will see you next week. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to spread the word, please share it with others, post about it on social media, and/or rate and review it. Of course, you can also follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, and email us at info@shawlawgroup.com.
Workplace Wake Up, including its guests and hosts, do not provide legal advice in this podcast. Do not act upon any of the information discussed in this podcast without consulting a licensed attorney in your jurisdiction.